Does the narcissist want to destroy you? What is it that all narcissists want? Answer: the prime aims, of course. The prime aims are fuel and control, character traits, and residual benefits. Those four things are what every narcissist wants. The greaters and the ultra know this. Lesser and mid-range do not. All of our behaviours, who we choose, how we manipulate, is geared towards the attainment of those four items, and fuel and control are the most important aspects of that. Accordingly, when you consider the question, does the narcissist want to destroy you, it is important to put it against that context of what is it that the narcissist wants. If we destroy you, how can you provide us with fuel? If we destroy you, how can you provide us with character traits? If we destroy you, how can you provide us with residual benefits? Yes, if you're destroyed, we have controlled you. But then, we are denied the fuel, we are denied the character traits, and we are denied the residual benefits. And therefore, your destruction is actually contrary to the needs of the narcissist. Remember, the most important person to the narcissist is the intimate partner primary source. You're the primary source because you are the individual which caters to those four aspects of the prime aims better than anybody else. That is why we made you the primary source. That is why you were love-bombed. That is why you're devalued. That is why we keep you under control. Nearly all narcissists have primary sources. And, given that the vast majority of narcissists are lesser and mid-range, they will invariably have one, and if they don't, it's only for a short period of time. That is because lesser narcissists are lazy, and mid-rangers want the minimum of effort. They want to be able to get the prime aims easily, readily, and in one place. Take, for instance, your weekly food shopping. You might go to a range of independent shops: the butcher, the baker, the candlestick maker, the greengrocer, a bookstore, an off-license, if any still exist, or a liquor store to others. And you could go to a variety of independent stores, a particular one selling cheese, one that's selling fruit and veg, and so forth. Or you could go to one supermarket and get everything under one roof. And invariably, most people do that, with occasional shopping elsewhere. Why? It's convenient, often cost-effective, and an appropriate use of your time. The narcissist is no different. In order to get those prime aims, the narcissist wants to put nearly all the eggs in one basket and get them from one person, the primary source. A lesser narcissist, 90% of the prime aims comes from one person, around 80 to 90%. Mid-rangers between 70 to 90%. With greaters and ultra, it can be 40 to 50%. But that doesn't matter as much to them, because the greater and the ultra have much wider fuel matrices and are able to obtain the prime aims from a wide range of secondary sources, both intimate and non-intimate, with ease. Accordingly, if a lesser narcissist destroys his primary source, he's just destroyed 90% of the prime aims. And remember, narcissism is a self-defense mechanism. It exists for the purposes of achieving those prime aims, not preventing them being obtained. And because the lesser narcissist obtains 80 to 90% of the prime aims from that one particular appliance, it is contrary to the best interests of that lesser narcissist to then destroy that individual. And, on most occasions, the narcissism will not allow that to happen. Accordingly, the narcissist doesn't want to destroy you. Why? Because the narcissism is not designed for that to happen. You are to be preserved. Yes, you'll be devalued. Yes, you'll be punished. Yes, you'll be treated badly. But that doesn't equate to destruction. The narcissism wants the prime aims to be achieved, and that means keeping you functioning. Yes, you'll be ground down eventually, and it is at that point you might escape, or more usually you're disengaged from. But you're not destroyed. You're not utterly broken. The narcissist disengages from you. There is no problem for the narcissist should you start to become ground down, because they will just move to a replacement, but you're still not destroyed. Because the narcissist at a later date is likely to hoover you, and therefore the preservation of you rather than the destruction of you again serves the narcissist's later interests. It is better, in effect, to keep you going. Yes, we will mete out horrendous treatment towards you, and in some instances put you in a position where you are beaten down, worn out, but still not yet destroyed. There is no conscious or unconscious decision to pursue you, to grind you into the dust. That is contrary to the acquisition of the prime aims. Why is it that you think that the narcissist wants to destroy you? Well, it's a combination of reasons. The first, misinformation. Too often, across the internet, people who don't understand narcissism talk about how the narcissist wants you dead, wants to destroy you, wants to crush you. Wrong. Those people don't know what they're talking about, and therefore they ought not to be listened to. 2. There are some instances where destruction occurs, and I will come to that in a moment, but they are in the minority. And the difficulty is that sometimes you will hear about, or you might have experienced it yourself, the destruction has occurred. But remember, those are just small examples as compared to the many, many other ones you won't have heard about. Think about it in the context of murder. Murder makes the news. Why? Because it's comparatively rare. And so, for instance, let us say in the United Kingdom in any one year, 850 people have been murdered. Do you know how many have not? Approximately 150 rather, have not been murdered. Put it in that context, the number of people who are murdered is extremely small. And therefore, the number of people that are actually destroyed by narcissists, although it can happen and is not usually intended, it is such a small proportion of the overall number of victims of the narcissist that aren't destroyed. But unfortunately, people don't look at it in context. They see the few examples where it has happened and think that's the norm. It is not. Take it from me. The number of individuals that I have interacted with who are victims of my kind, that I know about in terms of the ones that I have dealt with and experiences that I have witnessed in real life and through my various consultations, the proportion of people that have actually been destroyed by narcissists is very, very small indeed. And that gives a sense of perspective with regard to the number that are actually affected. And you need to keep that in mind. The third reason why people think that the narcissist wants to destroy them is emotional thinking. It generates fear, and quite understandably, when you're in the middle of the maelstrom, when you are being beaten up, when you're being pursued, when your property's being stolen and destroyed, when you're in the middle of that devaluation, it can feel like the narcissist wants to destroy you, but it's not actually the case. And your response and reaction to that is entirely honest and understandable, but it is still incorrect nevertheless. It feels like the narcissist wants to destroy you, but that actually isn't what's happening. Accordingly, narcissism is a self-defense mechanism, and it wants to preserve the assets, which are the appliances, of the narcissist so they can be repeatedly used for the pursuit of the prime aims. Therefore, the destruction of those assets runs contrary to the purpose of the narcissism. Therefore, In most cases, it doesn't happen. The belief that the narcissist wants to destroy you originates from people who don't understand narcissism, the misrepresentation out of context of the few instances where it does happen as being perceived as the norm, and thirdly, the presence of emotional thinking, which skews your perspective to believe that that's what the narcissist wants when actually it isn't. Now, given that most of the time the narcissist does not want to destroy you, what about the limited number of occasions where that does come about? Because occasionally it does. This falls into two categories. The first is collateral consequence. The second, intent. In some instances, distraction comes about because essentially the narcissism wasn't calibrated properly and caused the narcissist to act in a way that they bring about the destruction of the relevant appliance, whether it's actually killing somebody or causing them to break down to an extent that they're no longer functioning. That, of course, asserts control, but it means that the cessation of fuel, cessation of character traits and residual benefits, and that isn't actually in the interests of the narcissist. And where that happens, basically, the narcissism has gone too far and has caused the narcissism to bring about that destruction. Obviously, that is very difficult circumstances for the victim. And moreover, it actually runs contrary to the interests of the narcissist, and their narcissism has misfired. The narcissism did not intend for that destruction to occur, but it did, and it has misfired. So when destruction occurs with regard to lesser and mid-range narcissists, that is because the narcissism caused the destruction, but it ought not to have done. It might have been that it's misgauged the situation, the robustness or otherwise of the victim, or that there's been such a loss of control that has brought about the destruction. But it was never intended. It was a collateral consequence of the attempts to assert control, and it brought about the destruction when it ought not to have done. The second instance, and this is extremely rare, is where it is intended. And this is the premise of the greater or the ultra. The greater or the ultra can bring about your destruction. Ordinarily, they will not do so because we still recognize that you're much more valuable to us functioning and operational than you are being completely destroyed. Nevertheless, where your treachery is so great, and because as the greater and ultra, we have access to plenty of other appliances far more readily than the lesser and mid-ranger. Remember, the narcissism of the lesser and mid-ranger has to preserve the relevant appliances, particularly the primary source, because they are so valuable and they are not as effective as going and getting one immediately to replace one if it were destroyed. So therefore, their narcissism functions to keep that individual in play. If they could destroy someone and go and get another primary source at the drop of a hat, then the situation would be different. But they don't. They might cultivate one, and then they'll disengage, and then replace them with that cultivated individual who becomes the new primary source. But in most instances, for lesser and mid-range, the narcissism doesn't want to bring about the destruction because they can't replace the individual straight away were that to happen. And also, the lesser and mid-range might not actually be capable of bringing about the destruction of the victim also. With a wider range of options and a greater ability to draw replacement appliances to them, and with vast access to resource to bring about the destruction of the victim, the ones that intend it are greater and the ultra. We can cause it, and it does happen, but it still remains extremely rare. Accordingly, for the most part, the narcissist does not intend your destruction. The narcissism wants to keep you in play because you're a valuable resource for the prime aims, and destroying you runs contrary to the achievement of those prime aims. Where destruction does rarely occur, it is either as a collateral consequence of the narcissism misfiring, lesser or mid-range, or it was the intention of the narcissism of the greater or the ultra because they are able to bring about your destruction without any downside to themselves in terms of the loss of prime aims because you can be substituted by somebody else. do pay attention to what I've explained. Recognize that if you continue to think that the narcissist wants to destroy you, you might be in that very rare group where it's the actuality, but for the most part, it's because you are misunderstanding how we function, that you're swallowing the misinformation that's being provided by people who don't understand narcissism, that you're looking at matters out of context, and of course your emotional thinking wants you fearing this, because if you fear being destroyed, you're going to keep thinking about it and trying to do things to save yourself by placating and mollycoddling and trying to calm the narcissist down, etc., which means you're continuing to feed your addiction to the narcissist. The narcissist, in most instances, does not want to destroy you. You're much more valuable, kept in play, functioning, and of use to us. I'm H.G. Tudor. Thank you for listening.